course.
Perfect.
I haven't seen her else in this.
She has.
Okay. So I apologize about the weird coloring on the screen, but it's the best I can do. So thanks for coming. I'm here to hopefully answer whatever questions you guys have about the capstone. I realize sometimes the capstone is a little bit confusing because it's this independent project where we're very flexible. So I'm going to kind of give you the basic overview of it and the things you need to do. And then hopefully, if you guys have questions, those will kind of help direct the discussion. So anyway, what is the capstone, right? So the capstone is an independent study project. So everybody completes it on their own under the supervision of some member of the computer science or math faculty or math education. So the idea is that you want to be able to apply and synthesize what you've learned in your major. So you want to be able to take different things from different classes you've taken. You want to be able to put those together, kind of be able to make the connections, and then apply it towards a new project. And that can oftentimes include learning something new that you didn't learn in one of your courses, and it kind of shows that you're a mature math or computer science or math education student who could go on and kind of build on your education and do great things with it. So there's a couple of things you turn in for it. One is a 6 to 8 page single space paper, and the specific format of that may differ from project to project and from what you're, what specifically, so like the computer science one, we sort of are a little bit more prescriptive about what we like to see in the paper, whereas in the math one, it's very open. So I can kind of go into some of those things. But so there's that. And then there's also, at the end of the semester on Dead Day, we will have a poster presentation. So that means everybody will kind of make a poster which shows off their project, and we'll go into probably one of the rooms in Upper Olmsted, and students from the department who are taking classes in the department and professors will kind of be there, and everybody will walk around, and usually it goes by fast. Like we usually schedule an hour and a half for it, and I don't even have enough time usually to get around to everybody during that time. But it's usually a pretty, it's not super high stress. It's kind of a nice way to get to just talk with a bunch of people about your project, okay? There's also a web page that goes with the capstone. So if you go to that, it's on the library web page actually. So it's this research guides thing. I'll show it to you real quick. If you go there, this has a lot of the important information that you'll need on it. Probably the most important thing you want to look at is this part right here, which is on important dates, right? There's not very many important dates, but there's a few important dates to be aware of. Okay, so look at that stuff there. If you want to contact me, there's an email button right there. And then I have some sample posters and links to the capstone guidelines. That's a good thing to be aware of. So there's a specific set of guidelines that lays all of this out in a lot more detail. This is a good thing to kind of go through and read as well. I'm going to try to kind of cover the important stuff right now. And then hopefully I'll get this video up there as well. Okay. So I said you need to find a faculty member in the department to agree to be your sponsor for the project. It basically just means that you're working under them for the independent study part of it. So this can be anybody in the department. It usually works best that if you're a math student to have a math professor or a CS student to have a CS professor, but not always. I've done math ones before. I'm more than happy to do anybody who wants to do a computer science one, and I'd even be open to doing some math ones as well. So, it's up to you though to kind of approach a faculty member about it. So either come see me in my office or send me an email, set up an appointment, or go talk to one of the other faculty members. They all do it every semester, so they expect students to come. You shouldn't feel like you're inconveniencing them to do it. This is something that we do all the time. So find a faculty member and go talk to them about it. It's usually a good idea to kind of have an idea of what you might like to do for your project. It's sort of hard for the faculty member to just come up with ideas that might interest you off the top of their head, without any kind of warning. So it's usually a good idea to at least, the more specific idea you have, the better. But even if you've just kind of thought about general topics, maybe you've thought about some courses that you particularly enjoyed, or some ideas from a particular course you might like to explore a project in, that can help direct that discussion so that when you meet with the faculty sponsor about it, you can make that a more productive meeting. Okay, so think about that before approaching one of the faculty members, but then, like I said, make an appointment and go talk to them about it. First ask if they would be willing to be the sponsor for your project, and then talk to them about the possible title, topic, that sort of thing. And if you can even, and then, you might not do it the first meeting, but within the first few, kind of meetings with them, you can kind of hopefully get an idea of what they might expect from you. Because this is the person that will ultimately decide, do you pass or not? So it's pass, fail. So, they'll kind of help you, and it's a good thing. They should help you kind of figure out what would be an appropriate amount of work to do for it. And kind of help make sure you're meeting their expectations. Some of them might want to meet with you more frequently. Some will want to meet with you less frequently. So it's kind of whatever you work out with your sponsor. All right. One thing that I need by the end of the day on February 12th, so you have basically 2 weeks from today, is I want to know who your sponsor is, and I want to know generally at least what your working topic is. So if you have a kind of a working title or a topic, that's fine. I want to see that you've kind of had that discussion with your sponsor. So by the end of the third week of class. So you can certainly do it much sooner. The sooner you can get through that part, the better. And then the next sort of deadline for you after that isn't until the week after spring break. So March 25th, the end of the week after spring break, that's when we need a progress report. So for the progress report, you would send that to me and to your faculty sponsor. And basically, it's just something that you're going to write up, just kind of explaining what work you've already done on the project, and then kind of a list of remaining tasks, along with a timeline for when you think that they'll be completed by. The reason we kind of added this requirement in here is sometimes students would kind of fall off the radar and not really be working on the project, and we wouldn't really learn that until like right before the end of the semester, and it would be a big problem to kind of figure out who was finishing, who wasn't, and so we're kind of using this to identify early who is likely to finish and who's not likely to finish this semester. By the way, it's okay to not finish in one semester. If you're planning on being around another semester and you want to start the project now and keep working on it, that's completely okay. So what I do in that case is I would give you a special grade, which you probably have never gotten before. It's different than an incomplete. It's called an in progress. Okay, so in progress is just a grade that is sort of a placeholder, and eventually when you do complete the project, then I would just fill in the grade at that point. Okay, so it's sort of meant for things that are multi-semester type projects, which this can be if that's what you want it to be. If you want to graduate this semester, of course, then it's much more important that you get it completed, obviously. And so this just helps us hopefully at least figure out whether that's going to happen or not. All right, and then your sponsor is also a person that should be able to give you feedback, so you want to make sure that you get them, a draft of your paper or your poster or both with enough time towards the end of the semester that you can get some feedback on it and make sure it meets their expectations before you finally turn it in. Okay, and then your final materials, I'll go to them, and then you copy me on it as well. But again, the faculty sponsor is the one who I will ask for, did you pass or not? Okay, so faculty sponsor is an important part of it. All right. The poster session, what's all that about? Okay, so this is just a photo I took at one of the poster sessions, just kind of show you how it works. Basically, we just have one of those rooms in Upper Olmsted, and the students all kind of tape their posters to the walls, and then everybody walks around and talks with them. We have a plate of cookies in the middle, and it's a good time, right? So most of the students, I think, have enjoyed this. And there's a variety of different options. So you'll notice, like Alicia here, when she did it, she had sort of a trifold poster sitting on a table and her computer next to it, which was showing either her code or a demo of her project, whatever she made. Some people tape them to the walls. There's lots of different sort of options for how you want to do it that we can support. But the important thing about the project is that, about the poster, is that you want it to be something that kind of tells the story of your project. You're going to be there with it, though, so you're going to be able to explain anything. So this is something where you want it to be very visual. You want it to have pictures, not a ton of text. You can have some text on it for sure, but you're going to be there, so you're going to be able to point to your poster and explain things in a little more detail. But it kind of is like your visual aid. Rather than getting up and giving a presentation in front of a room where you have flipped through a bunch of slides, you're kind of putting all that on your poster. Okay, so during the session, you'll stand with your poster. You'll a lot of people will come up to you and say things like, "Okay, tell me about your project." So you'll kind of need a quick, thing that you can do within a couple of minutes of just kind of the overview of your whole project. But then, the discussion after that will be answering questions and just kind of taking the discussion wherever it goes with whatever person is talking to you, okay? And that will be different, if you're talking to one of the CS65 students who's coming for extra credit, or one of the, faculty members who's, going to be more interested in the technical details. And like I said, you can bring a computer or whatever. We can usually accommodate whatever needs you have for this. Okay, so how do you prepare your poster? So you have a few options. PowerPoint, I think, seems to be the most popular one that students use. So you can actually set PowerPoint to be like any size slide. So people will basically just tell it to make it like a 3 foot by 3 foot or a 3 foot by 4 foot, slide page, and you just lay things out wherever you want them to go, and it allows you to drag text and figures around. So PowerPoint is really nice for that. You can also use LaTeX. So on that website, I showed you there was examples of posters there. I'll go ahead and show it to you again. I've given you sort of a couple of examples, like Mylan Sherman had a poster that he did for a conference, and so it's a math education one if you want to see an example of a math education poster. I've also done a CS poster before that I did in PowerPoint, so you can look at what my file looks like there. You can take one of those and kind of use it as a template for your own if you want. And then there's also a couple of LaTeX ones as well. I have a CS LaTeX one. I had a student a couple semesters back that did a nice LaTeX one, and he, donated his files as a nice template you could use. So anyway, you can look there. You can also look on, of course, you guys are, have pretty good Google foo, I'm sure. You can find nice templates for posters on the web. This website here is a library webpage, escholarshare.drake.edu. The cool thing about this is that they post a lot of the materials from Dukers, right? So Dukers is that undergraduate research conference that we hold every April. And so those are all posters. By the way, that's a good thing to go attend if you haven't in the past, if you want to see what a poster session kind of looks like. So go in April when they're having that. And then a lot of them get then captured and put on this website, and a lot of them even have the PowerPoint files there as well. So you can go and look at other people's, and you can use their templates and replace it with all of your information. So there's lots of places to get files and things that you can use for it. Okay, so that's how you prepare your poster. All right, so then the question is, well, how do I print a poster, right? How do I print one of these big things? So unfortunately, we don't have a budget for this class, so I can't just pay to have all your posters printed. I would love it if I could do that. But we don't have a book or anything. So this is the one expense you have for this class, which we feel like, sorry. But so we're perfectly happy with the low budget option. Some of the low budget options have been really nice. So if you can do a good job with the low budget option, that's great. You can purchase just a poster board for less than $1 at a craft store, like that one I showed you of Alicia's back here. She had a trifold one, and then you just basically put up, you print out at the library printer with the way you normally print stuff off for class or whatever. You can print up things and kind of mount them on there with colored paper or whatever, and that can be very nice. So that's definitely an option. You can also go high budget option, which is you can take the PowerPoint file or the PDF from the LaTeX file, and you can take it to Office Max or Kinko's or something, and they'll print a very nice glossy poster for you, and that can run you more than $50. So if that's what you want to spend on it, though, you're more than welcome to. As far as a medium budget option, I'm not sure on this. So I used to have I used to be able to get the biology department to print them for us, and they would sort of charge a medium amount of money, and I don't have that available to me this semester. They've been charging us more and more because I think it's just a big headache for them to do that for us. But I might try to look around on campus. I know there are other places on campus that have poster printers that we might be able to hook up with, but I don't know that right now. I know some of you are familiar with some of those. So if you know of like a way to print a poster on campus, some secret poster printer somewhere, you can do that as well. But I'll work on seeing if there's another option. But you can certainly always go, like I said, the low budget option is just fine. Okay, here's just some examples. If you walk around the department, walk around Howard, you can find a bunch of them. Here's an example of one that was just made with printed paper. That's outside of Professor Kent's. I think this is that John Emmons' example. I think that's probably up in the hallway downstairs. This was one that used to be outside my office. That one's different now, though. But these are just, some examples of what these look like. If you want to go walk around and find some specific ones to kind of get inspiration, you can go look downstairs. Just a few more. That's a math ed one. That's a close-up of Alicia's that was on the previous slide. So, yeah, so definitely other things available. Okay, that's posters. Do you guys have questions about the posters before I move on to talking about the other parts? Okay. All right. Now, depending on whether you're doing a math capstone or a CS capstone or a math ed capstone, there may be some sort of additional guidelines that pertain just to you. Actually, if you're a math capstone, there are no extra guidelines. It's a lot more wide open. But there are some specific guidelines for CS and math ed, so I'll talk about those right now. Okay, for CS, we are looking for you to do some kind of software development or systems building. So it doesn't have, if it's not software, it could be like, like a robot building, like that's possible. Or some kind of computer science research. And by that, I don't mean like library research. I mean like you're doing some kind of computational computer science research where you're actually having to, write some code, test some things, whatever it is. So what this does not include is just writing like a survey paper where you go out and learn about things and kind of relate them back, right? So that's not included. You actually have to write some code or something like that. Okay, and the guidelines also point out sort of 4 big things that your paper should have in it. And then the reason is that if you compare this with like a math one, like a math project, the paper might be like the main thing that you did, right? So you might be like giving proofs and things like that. So in contrast, if you're doing a computer science one, the main thing that you did was probably developing the system or the software or whatever it is. So the paper is just meant to complement that. So what we would kind of expect to see in the paper to complement that is a project narrative that kind of just goes over the problem that you kind of meant to solve, the context, meaning like, what are the users, what are the environment that this system will work in, maybe what other software exists that kind of works on this problem as well. Kind of talk about what activities you took to complete it, maybe what things you had to learn about in order to get it done, and then just what your results were. What did you end up with? How did testing go? Just kind of give us an overview of how everything went. So that's the project narrative. And then we also have a few learning objectives that are learning objectives of our entire computer science program. And so we just want you to make some remarks on each of those. So, for instance, one of the things, we have this learning objective where we want people who graduate with a computer science degree to be able to use abstraction. By abstraction, we mean like objects, functions, those sorts of things. Use good programming techniques, basically. We want you to be able to understand algorithms and data structures, use the appropriate algorithms and data structures for the particular problem. So you just write a short discussion where you show that you did those things. So, yeah, I built this in an object-oriented way. I had this one problem and I realized this was the best data structure for it, or it was a good enough data structure for it, and here's why, right? So say some of those things so that we can say, yeah, this person knows what they're talking about. Also, a discussion of either computational complexity or performance, right? So did you take into consideration like how this scales up, right? You could do like a big O analysis, or you could just do testing, right, where you test and make sure that this works and it's speedy enough for the application that you want it that it's being used for. That's fine. Just some kind of thought about performance, and then a discussion of how you used ideas from multiple upper division courses or new things you learned for the project. So this is going back to that. This is supposed to be a synthesis of a bunch of different things you've learned in the major. So tell us why that is, right? Show us that you can combine ideas from multiple classes for this project, or that you could go on and learn new things for it. So if you kind of summarize those things as part of your paper, that's kind of what we're looking for. Okay, for math education majors. So math education majors, the standard is sort of that your project should be 3 lesson plans. So your project will be 3 lesson plans, and you're supposed to choose areas from the Common Core for 9th to 12th grades, 9th, 12th grade in the Common Core. Or 6th to 8th is okay if you're just doing a middle grades endorsement, but for secondary ed, you pick things from 9th to 12th grade, obviously. And so you're going to do lesson plans on those area, and then your paper should kind of include, or in your lesson plans, I guess, should include connections to your college level coursework. So you've done something in your upper level math courses that you can then kind of bring to the high school classroom in some way, right? So make those connections. And then you want to have considerations in there for advanced students, for struggling students, kind of show how your lesson plan works for the entire spectrum, and incorporate math education research, best teaching practices, innovative approaches to curriculum design, right? Again, kind of showing that you can do all the things you're supposed to learn as part of your major in the context of those 3 lesson plans. Okay, so that's the math education stuff. Like I said, there's no other specific guidelines for math majors, which sometimes leaves it a little bit more open-ended, which is on purpose, kind of. I mean, the math projects tend to vary a lot more in kind of what things people do. So sometimes, if you can do a math history project, and that's going to look very different than if you're doing some math research where you maybe prove some new theorem, or if you're just sort of summarizing how a particular theorem applies in some case, and you might reprove the theorem and show how it applies. There's a lot of different things you can do. So you'll have to talk about more specifics with your sponsor in that case. Okay, so that's what I have for the overview of the capstone. Now I'm hoping you guys will have some questions that I can answer. So what do you think? Yeah?
If you're math and computer science, do you need 2 sponsors?
That's a good question. You don't have to. So there's a couple of different problems surrounding that. One is, am I allowed to do one project and have it count for 2 capstones? And the answer is yes, but it needs to have both components, right? So it's one of those things where sometimes that can make less work, sometimes that can make more work. So sometimes people will just choose to have just 2 separate capstone projects, and that's easier. But you can have one, and if it really does have legitimately a math part and a computer science part, but they kind of are on the same thing, that's fine. And in those cases, especially, having one sponsor is okay. A lot of times when I'm sponsoring those types of projects, I will often say, could you run this by, one math professor and just make sure this looks okay to them. Even if they're not your sponsor, we'll kind of get a little bit of feedback. So we usually do that to make sure nobody has any problems with it and it'll be okay for you. Yeah, does that answer your question? Okay. Yeah. Other questions? Have you guys been to the Capstone poster session before? Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, well, like I said, the first thing you need to do is find a sponsor. So get back to me with that sometime by February 12th. And if you want me to be your sponsor, you can talk to me now or make an appointment to come see me later. Would be just fine. All right? Good luck.